Radio. I'm Annette McCoy, always delighted to be with you. And today I have the lovely Marney Perna with me. Morning, Marney.
Good morning, Annette. How are you?
Good. It's a very, very special day, as those people who have been on Facebook already will know. Later on this afternoon, I, with my siblings, celebrate the life of our mum, who passed a month ago today, 4 weeks ago today. We delayed the service because grandchildren were holidaying overseas and wanted to be a part of it, naturally. And how fortunate that we were able to do that. So the topic today is very, very timely for myself. And I know it's dear to Marnie's heart too, because her mum passed a few years ago. So you still have one parent. That also has issues, doesn't it, Marnie? So if we can help our supporters this morning by sharing our stories and also things that work for us, that would be absolutely fabulous. If you would like to join in the conversation, please do. You can do that via Angel Heart Radio Facebook page, because life is interesting and we can help each other by sharing our different experiences and how we've managed to work through the more difficult times. Marnie.
Yes, love.
I know that it's tricky, has been tricky for you, because you and your mum were so close and you did so much together, didn't you?
No,
you had your regular coffee mornings, and that would have left a huge hole for you.
Yeah, I was lucky that my parents lived very close. They were in a granny flat on our property at the time. And so their daily life was part of my daily life as well. So I know it's different for everybody, but that was just how it worked for me. So my mum was very much part of my daily life, but she was also part of my business life, because when I was doing public speaking or workshops, mum would always come along. So she's kind of my groupie. She was my number one fan. And also too, when I was learning, I'm a natural therapist by profession. And when I was training, my parents were my test bunnies. So whenever I learned a new technique, they were the ones I would go to and say, hey, guys, I need help, because my children were a lot littler. They weren't quite sure about what the whole process was about. But mum and dad were quite open to it, and in different ways. Mum just embraced kinesiology. She loved the way it would tap into the emotional trauma that she was feeling. Dad was a more structural kind of person, and still is. He needed to know why I needed to let him work, why I needed to work on him. And so I would tell him the reason, what I wanted, what I was doing, and then I would get copious notes from the get-go about every aspect of it. So I had to learn to filter and listen, because he'd taken the time to be involved as well. So two totally different people. But my grief when mum passed was, it was overwhelming. It was huge. But I lost both parents at the same time, if that makes any sense to people, because they were living at home with me. They were part of what we were doing. Mum left and went to live in heaven, which, I can't quite visit her up there except by telepathic. But Dad decided he didn't want to live in the granny flat anymore. So he kind of wanted to live in independent living. So I kind of lost mum totally and Dad half and half. And that was a big shock for me, because I went, oh, how dare you? What right have you got to leave? Because it also left me, and I think what startled me the most, because I'd had loss in my life, but not as directly as with mum. You still had to go to the toilet. You still had to cook meals. You still had to wash, care for family members, put petrol in the car. All these mundane things still happened. And you're sitting there going, well, didn't the universe stop? I mean, it should have stopped. Why didn't it stop? So that is another level that you're having to work at. And then you've got the whole doing the ceremony and choosing the right thing and doing all those kind of other things that were part and parcel of the grief cycle, and had to be done fairly quickly. Like you didn't have a lot of choice.
Yes.
And even to the loss of, we cared for Mum at home, so she passed at home. And that again was, you know, a shock, because I'd never nursed anyone in palliative stage before. So you're sort of floundering before and you're drowning afterwards, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yes, it can be an incredibly tough time. One of the most challenging, I can remember a girlfriend many, many years ago when her father passed, and she said it's certainly a biggie, and it is, yeah.
And when you lose both parents, now I know I haven't got to that stage as yet, but Dad is 94 and showing increasing signs of dementia and frailty, which, you know, is a shock again. You're going through the whole process again. And you think you've learnt lessons or learnt tips and techniques from the previous experience, but everyone's unique, everyone's different. So there's only little aspects you can use to help, kind of thing. But what was I even going there with? Oh, when you lose both parents, you're an orphan. It doesn't matter what age you are.
Now, Marnie, I used that term, and a girlfriend said her husband used that when it was her, and she said she was offended. And I said, I call myself, because I've become an orphan and also a matriarch at the same time.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So
changing of the baton.
Yep, changing the guard, changing of the heraldry. You know, it's all moved up a peg, and suddenly we're the next. We're going, no. You sure? There's no one in between? So Mum was one of 5, and she was the youngest girl. Her baby brother passed first, and her oldest brother passed several years before her. But Mum and my dad, so my dad is the oldest living person on his side of the family that is still alive. Oh, well, not still alive, but has got to the age that he has.
Right.
So most of his generation, or his parents, his siblings all passed many, many, many years ago, and his parents passed, well, I would have been a teenager, and there's sort of no one in between. So there was never longevity in his side of the family. And Mum was the same. So Mum was the matriarch and oldest living member of her immediate family as well.
Right.
So, you know, it gives you good genes, but it's no guarantee of anything. Just
well,
nice
no, it's not.
Time.
And it brings its challenges to those who are there. I mean, my mum, God bless her, was almost 93, so she'd had, you know, a long life. The thing is, not only had she lost her life partner 3.5 years ago, there were lots. She knows more people in heaven. Would have been a great party when she first got up there.
Totally. Yeah.
And she was ready to go. She said that.
Yeah. And I know my mum did too. My mum stops drinking and eating. And when she stopped drinking Baileys, we knew it was it. Because that was her tipple. You know, she would always have Baileys over anything. But I remember the last little drink of Baileys I attempted to give her, she just couldn't do it. She couldn't taste it. She couldn't have the energy or inclination at that stage, I think, to swallow, which was I'm a healer. So I was trying to heal. I was trying to make her better. And I was using all the tricks of my trade and others to keep her, keep her here, I suppose, to help her, because I didn't want to think afterwards that I hadn't done enough, that I didn't utilise enough of my experiences. But you have to let your ego go a little bit and know that it's not about you, about them. And she chose that time to go, and she also chose where she wanted to go, because she was quite capable of demanding to go home and not into a nursing home. And still had at that stage.
It's interesting you say that, because my mum was ready to go, and she said, I think God must have COVID because he stopped working.
God bless. They're very, very direct, aren't they? There's no padding. And I think that's what you have.
And I was saying, well, Mum, you know, I believe we all have a use-by date. Yeah. Obviously, you haven't quite reached yours.
And well, my dad's been trying to use his use-by date since 75. he said around 75. Well, my use by date 75, that's it. And then, you know, here he is 20 years later. You know.
Now, Bev Kirk has joined us, and she says,
Hi, Bev.
beautiful topic. And thank you.
A relevant topic, Bev. And we all deal with it, and we deal with it with our fur family, we deal with it with our immediate family, and we help others deal with it with their family. Because sometimes the hardest thing is to express your heartfelt sorrow for the person's grief. You know, words just seem a little bit mundane. Hugs are so much easier, aren't they? Just giving someone a big hug, it's just, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
we don't have to say anything with a hug.
No. So, I mean,
thank goodness we can hug again now.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful.
Yeah. So when the grief is raw, attempt not to wipe it away. Don't wallow in it, but be part of that experience. But what you need to also do, and you've done it beautifully, Annette, you've allowed the grief to be there, but you haven't allowed it to take over everything, kind of thing. So you've accepted. And I think too, the fact that people have a faith, and it doesn't matter what your faith is, but if you have a faith in something of afterlife or the cycle of life, even, you know, from the Lion King, life has a cycle and it does go around, and you do reach the final cycle, and it is just, no one lives forever. It's one of the few certainties in life is death. So we need to be able to cope better with it or well with it. And someone passing is always going to miss a significant event, you know, so it's never the right time. I think that was one of the lessons I learned, was it's never the right time. The time is never right. It's always hard. It's always in your face, and it's always it can be overwhelming initially, and then you've got to sort of go through it. But you'll think of it as coming in waves, like the ocean. The ocean's perpetual. So allow the grief to come in waves, but the waves go back out again, and then another little lot will come through. So, you know, you might have a stormy state, but then you might have that nice gentle flow that's happening as well. But you've also got to remember, sorry, while I remember it, because my head's like a sieve, remember that you were being given gifts from yesterday that are blessings for today and the future. So that's what your memories are.
That's right. Yes. I think the thing for me is that it can catch me unawares, having lost Barry 22 years ago. It's amazing how it might be music or a situation. I might go somewhere where we'd been together. All of a sudden, you know, so emotion can grab us unawares. Whereas at the moment, yes, it is very raw, and so I think we expect it more. Whereas down the track, it's like, oh my goodness.
So if we can look at those when those memories surface, another way of accepting it as part of our life cycle is to know that for whatever reason that person has reached out and touched our heart again, and reminded us that, you know, that they're still around and they're still part of our lives. They're just not there in the physical.
Sure.
You know, so it is sometimes a little trigger or a little tap on the shoulder. You know, many people smell cigarette smoke or smell perfume or smell something of a person, of a loved one that's gone. And our olfactory senses, which is our sense of smell, it is acute. And it doesn't lie to you. So if you've smelt it, you've smelt it. There's you can't sort of, not chemically, you can't logically work out why or how, but it's happened. So you just have to accept and embrace and know that for some whatever reason you've been gifted a tap on the shoulder from someone. You know, so
it's interesting too, Marnie, because birds or animals might appear at the time. It's like my sister and I have been working in Mum's unit, and birds, I was outside the other day and this bird was calling. It was so obviously, hello, Mum, yes, you're here. And the magpies, that one day there were 2 magpies, and it was like, yeah, Mum and Dad.
Exactly.
Yeah, telling us they're okay.
Yeah. Magpies are one of my totems as well for mum, because we had acreage, as I said, and a couple of the trees, she named a couple of the trees. One was her brother. She used to say hello to Kevin. It was a big, tall leopard tree, and it was really, because he was a weightlifter, so she used to call him Kevin. And the magpies in the vicinity, we never had challenges with our magpies. They never attacked us. They used to attack one dog sometimes, but the rest of us, we could walk around even at baby time, and it was never an issue. Mm-hmm. So 2 of the magpies were named Mum's sisters. So one was Sheila and one was Aileen. In the morning of Mum's passing, I had to walk up from the granny flat to the house to let Santo know that it had happened. And 3 magpies glided. They didn't flap. There was 3 magpies glided from the granny flat across over the top of me and across my house and forward on. And I personally, I fully believe that the girls came to take Mum with them.
Sure.
They were together again, and they do. And the magpie, all of a sudden, like, you get them around and they're here, but they'll do something different to normal. And that's when it's an acknowledgement. It's one of the totems or the guides coming through. So I used to get one that would stand on the clothesline. I'll get on the top of the clothesline, which is abnormal, when you're hanging out clothes, and sing. To just wobble for me. So it was lovely. So for me, that they all help the heart. They're all blessings that we're given.
Yes.
When you recognise them.
That's right. Because I think some of us can not realise what they are. Like, you acknowledge your mum with messages with feathers.
Mm. She gave me a bunch today, but not the sort I wanted. Something got a bird last night, so they're not quite the feathers I usually get with Mum. Usually they're just different kind of feathers. But yeah. So there's also things that you can do, like in my capacity as a professional therapist, I assist people in the grief and the healing process. And I remember very early in my career, I had a lass come to me who had cared for her sister, and her sister had passed with cancer. Okay, now the lass and her child, or her daughter, had lived with the sister. So it was one of those situations where they were together all the time. So it was part of their everyday life. And it was also at a time where it wasn't quite as, the family weren't quite as open to bright colours and things like that. So, but the lass wanted to connect with her sister in a big way. And during the balance, it came up that the colour deep purple showed up, right? Now, it wasn't a colour that was randomly around the place, but it was a colour that connected both this lady and her sister. So it was their colour kind of thing. So we came up with the concept that for her to feel close to her sister and be able to know that the sister is supporting her in coping on the day for the celebration of life, we bizarrely came up with that she had to go and find underwear in that colour. So she wore a bra and underwear in that colour, but on the outside she was still conforming to the expected code of dress sort of thing from the family. But she knew that this colour was so close to her skin. So for her it was huge to be able to do that and feel, totally connected to her sister. And she said it wouldn't have been something she would have even thought of, because she would have liked to worn that colour, but it wasn't a colour that was readily found in clothing. So, what can you do? What lessens the grief a little bit? What helps you cope on the day? And it's amazing how resilient you are on the day. It's afterwards. Because you lead up, you're busy, you're doing the best you can or you're trying to get places or get people in, or, do all those practical kind of things. And it's after that you often notice the grief.
That's so true. We've had a beautiful message. I have had a beautiful message from Carol, who is a regular participant here in the shows. Carol Kessels, thank you so much. And she mentions that may beautiful memories be with you, Annette, always. Mums are always in our heart.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Indeed.
And you have to live without regret as well. you know. So many people lament or worry like a dog with a bone, the concept that they weren't there at the time. All right. But people choose when they're going to die. They can't always say, well, I'm going to die at this time at that day, right? But at the time that they're going, they often wait for their loved ones to leave the room because they don't want their loved ones, the last thing, to be the last gasp sort of thing. All right, especially in a clinical situation. So you will often find people have been there for days or weeks or whatever, waiting, and then they'll go to the toilet, or they'll go somewhere and they come back and the person has passed. Now that's a deliberate choice that the person has chosen to give the actual moment of passing not to bear, if that makes sense to you. So if that has happened to you, know that it's okay, that you haven't let them down. They were fully aware of your support and your love or your thoughts, but they chose their time, not you.
Yes.
So let that burden go.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's so much up to us how we deal with our thinking. Belinda Brown, thank you for joining us, and thank you for your beautiful message. Good morning, beautiful ladies. My heartfelt thoughts and energies are sent to you today, Annette. Thank you, Belinda. Yes, to know that loved ones, it's comforting to know that Mum passed, even though my brother and sister had been with her as much as possible. She chose to go early morning. And yes, so then they had their opportunities to say goodbye as they wanted to. I had gone to Queensland on a holiday, and I wanted to have the lovely memories I had of the last couple of times I was with Mum, and she would always stand and wave goodbye, and she'd wait for the car to do this turn, and then she'd still be waving. And many a time, Marnie, I thought, is this the last time I see my Mum? And I'm not sure if that was my thought that very last time, but to see her smiling face was absolutely wonderful, and that was what I wanted to remember. So and I know she's now looking down, and
hopefully you've all done the right thing.
Well, I sense this afternoon she'll give a thumbs up. My sister and I yesterday went to the memorial service for a very dear friend of hers, a lifelong friend. And so how interesting that two friends have gone, and for Mum there was another one as well, all within days, weeks of each other. It's
bizarre, but it's planned, and we can't do anything about it. None of us know the exact time and date. It's a blessing if your parents have lived a long life for you and that you've all got on, but you also got situations where a parent has passed young, you know, so it doesn't mean you get old and then pass. Sometimes we lose our parents at a very young age. And with that, we have to draw on the memories that they've left behind. So you will find that people will make something out of the parents' clothing or something, which is a tangible reminder of that person. All right. So it's not maudlin. So don't think it's maudlin. What's maudlin is if you turn your house into a shrine to the person. All right. So you can honor the person without making their life your life, if that makes any sense to people. All right. So honor the memories and enjoy the memories, but don't turn it into a, you know, how some people don't, I suppose it's however people deal with it themselves. But I personally think you need to allow some space to let the person's energy leave. All right. So talking energetically here, allow them to let go as well, because we don't want the person corded and kind of not free to go. Their soul needs to fly. It needs to be free. So if you are hanging on to some things, what can you take some photos of some special memories and make a collage and have that as your gift. But I also know that you can't do that in the immediate aftermath. You have to give yourself time, and it's very awkward when people are in nursing homes and things like that. Again, we're talking about an older person, but I know my mother-in-law had to go through 2 or 3 of her children's passing, and one of them in particular, the family decided to help her, and they went in and they cleared out all of one of her son's stuff. So she went back to the house because he lived with her, you know, thinking it would be there, and it was all gone. And that, I think that devastated her. She took a long time to come to terms with that, because she would have just liked little things left behind. And yes, it was sad, but she would have coped better.
Right.
You know, so for the people whose mum wasn't there or haven't been there in their growing up years, it is difficult for them. But there's a shell called Murex. Now, the Murex shell is a beautiful shell. It's one of those really chunky, big shells. And the Murex shell is all about the mothering. So if you've missed a special connection to your mum, see if you can find a Murex shell. You can generally find them in those, you know, home titivating kind of shops. And it's got that beautiful pearl pink, which is all about mum. All right. And that's for the mum who wasn't there, or maybe the mum who wasn't there because she wasn't as emotionally connected to you, and you're finding it hard to grieve with love. It's another way of grieving, right? You don't always grieve with love. Sometimes you grieve and you've got all the regrets and everything there. So you need to maybe write yourself a letter. I wouldn't write it to your mum, write it to yourself, and allow your inner self to express how you're feeling. And if you can find a Murex shell, that will help you. Have that next to where you're writing, and know that mothering energy, or the universal mothering love is helping you to write what you need to write, and then scrunch it up and toss it away. You don't need to hang on to it, because all of those heavy negative kind of feelings that you're holding all weigh you down. Now, they either weigh you down physically or they weigh you down mentally, which is just as heavy as a physical weight. And a lot of grief sits in the metal element of the Chinese philosophy, and the metal is all about the lungs and large intestine. Right. So in those areas, you have grief, regret, release, self-worth, all of those kind of things come into it. But if you think of the organs, the lung, it stops your breathing. You're doing the shallow breathing. You need to open your lungs up again and breathe again, because you're alive. Put your hand in the middle of your chest, and underneath that is your heart. And whilst that's beating, you're alive. So, you know, allow the lungs to clear and let go. Get some nice peppermint oil and put it under your nose and breathe it in. And as you exhale, let go all the regrets and the what ifs and the coulda, woulda, shouldas, because they're of no benefit to your higher self now. Okay.
Thank you, Marnie. You always have such wonderful ideas and strategies. Thank you. Carol has told me that the chat has disappeared. I'm not sure why. I'm sorry if that's the case.
They're playing games. Who is playing games? Come on, girls. Get your act together.
That's right. Oh, no, well, Belinda has just, she's gorgeous. I'm in Sydney, sadly, also for a funeral of a beautiful friend. A beautiful friend's 19-year-old son. He passed on his girlfriend's birthday. A week later was his mum's birthday. He passed on his girlfriend's birthday, and he was supposed to be best man at his brother's wedding next week. And the only available spot for his funeral was supposed to be his 20th birthday.
Oh, God.
Truly heartbreaking, and left me wondering why. Sometimes life can be so cruel.
Absolutely. Very sucky. Get as much rose quartz as you can today, Belinda. It's rose quartz is self-love and acceptance as well. You'll probably find kookaburras hanging around somewhere as well. For some reason, it's just a random thought that came through. But yeah, the grief of losing a child is even more tragic than the grief of losing our parents. And the only thing I can say about the timing is, you know, it's allowing the grief and the joy and everything to happen at the one time. You know, so it's not spread across the year. It's just in a bundle together, and maybe in time the joy you'll be able to celebrate his 19 years that he had, or his nearly 20 years. And you know, laughter is a healer on many levels. So many people feel awful if they laugh at a funeral or a celebration of life. And I think too, the wording that we're using now is more connected. So we talk about the celebration of life rather than the you know, the funeral service or whatever. It's all about celebrating the life that has been. Now also too, Belinda, there's a lovely, I'll share it on Angel Heart Radio if everyone's part of the Angel Heart Radio, and that's the story of the water beetle and the dragonfly. And it's one that's very connected to the youth energy in a passing. And the concept of the whole thing is there's a family of water beetles that live on the bottom of the creek or the dam. And every so often one of the water beetles disappears and goes to climb up the stem of the lily pad. And they're going to come back and tell everyone what's above, because, you know, they're looking up and they can see all this stuff happening. But that water beetle never comes back. And so this one day, this one very determined water beetle says, that's it, I'm going to find out. I'm going to come back and I'm going to tell everyone what happens. So she climbs the stem of the of the lily pad, and she gets to the top, and it's a lovely day, and she's a little bit tired. So she rests on the lily pad and has a sleep. And as she awakes, she realizes she's transformed from the water beetle to a beautiful dragonfly. And as a dragonfly is not able to go back under the water again, but she also is aware at that time that things change and that you morph into something else, and that it's okay, and that each water beetle that climbs that stem has that realization, and off she flies into the blue yonder. So it is a lovely passage. It's an anonymous passage. No one knows where it came from, but I share it a lot with families, especially in a teenage passing or a youth passing. So it's just, it gives you hope. It gives you realization that they're okay, and they've gone off on a different journey. Doesn't help the people behind. And you do have to be gentle with yourself.
Indeed. Now, Marnie, you mentioned the kookaburras, and as you mentioned the kookaburras, they sung their heart out where Belinda is.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Well, the kookaburra is the totem animal for one of the angel feather cards, which is the emerald angel feather, right? And emerald angel feather is the card of healing and self-healing. So a kookaburra will often turn up unexpectedly when you're going through some form of journey that requires healing, and there can't be any more than healing after a loss. So that's awesome. Well done. Lovely.
I love it when things like that happen. It's just amazing.
But they make you smile as well, so it allows you to smile and be connected. Right. And not everyone will understand it. You'll tell that sometimes to, you know, someone who's not as maybe open to some of their stuff as others, and they'll just look at you as if you've got three heads. But that's okay. That's their journey. They'll and you know, who's to know that the seed's not planted? So when they hear a kookaburra, they'll go, ooh. Yeah.
Oh, indeed. And I think that's a really good point too, Marnie. It is different for everybody, and that's what we're very aware of. And yes, we're sharing our own experiences, hoping that it might help others. The thing is, we are all different. We all experience grief in, as you said, in different waves at different times. There are certain emotions that, yes, we have to go through, but it won't be, it's never the same for any two people. So to know that whatever we're doing for ourselves, that's the important thing, to trust our own judgment, if you like, of us, you know, and to be gentle with ourselves, because it is a very challenging time, one of the most challenging times. You know, that you were mentioning the circle of life and our delight when a baby is born. And then we know it, as surely as there is life, yes, there is the passing from this lifetime. And in sometimes it can be really at the end of a long life, such as my mum's, and at other times tragically, and it is definitely tragic when it's younger people. So, Belinda's crying with joy in her heart. Thank you.
Lovely. Yeah.
And I've just been sent a message to say that a very dear family friend, long-time family connection, has joined. How lovely. Thank you very much, Chris, for being here.
Yeah.
This special day.
So one of the other, so there are things that you can use to help yourself cope, right? And you there's a myriad of things that we can utilize nowadays that are tangible things, but energetically really connected to passing and life and being able to cope, right? So I spoke about rose quartz. Now, rose quartz is one of the beautiful pink, very pale pink, like the murex shell, but you can't see the pink. It's clearly on that. It's the pink of the color behind Annette in the banner behind Annette. And rose quartz is all about self-love, but it's also connected to love. So it's kind of allows you to feel connected. And I know a very good friend of mine worked for one of the funeral companies, and she was the funeral director there, which is an unusual choice of profession, but she was so beautiful.
Miss Marney has frozen for a moment. How interesting. I'm not quite sure what's going on then. We might have Marney back in a moment. Again, we go with whatever is happening. And that's a sign from above. Thank you, angels, for showing us that we never really know what's going on. And a few weeks ago, Maureen St. Germain was on here with me, and at the time Maureen shared that a question to ask is, what is going, I wonder what is going on. And that's a very good question for the moment. I find that I'm using that question time and time again in my day, especially if I'm unsure about what to do next. It's a case of, well, I wonder what is going on here. And Bev Kirk is reminding us that there's a time to be born, time to die, time to laugh, and a time to cry. Ain't that the truth? And here comes Marnie again, and she's back. Woohoo!
They are having fun today, aren't they?
It's called being challenged on our toes. But how wonderful that you simply went through the motions and technology that I got a message to say that you were there, which was very nice. And so we just continued, which was lovely.
Did, yes. I don't know how far along the gemstone talk I gave, but yeah, so people can go to a crystal shop and just randomly choose, and don't allow your logical side to come into it. Let your intuition and your inner self come in, and just walk around the shop and something will grab your attention. That's what you need to pick up. All right. And it's energetically, it's filling a void that you're feeling at the moment. So giving you something tangible to do or something tangible to look for. Okay, so is it weird? No, it's quite normal. It's lovely. It's very, very comforting and very good for children. Let children choose some gemstones at the grief of passing. Children can be very abrupt's not the right word. Callous. Callous could be the word, because they have an acceptance that's totally different to ours. You know, they accept the fact that it's happened. Yeah. And we've got little granddaughters that live with us at the moment. And whenever we were talking about my mum, and they'd say, oh, great grandma lives in heaven. And my son would be going, oh, God. It's just what they knew. That's where she lived. They didn't know her, but they know her from photos and from discussions and talking, and they know she was the great grandma, and that she lives in heaven. So, you know, they hear what you're saying as well.
Yes.
And you know, there's things you can use like the spritzers and sprays. I've got one that's just for mum. Now I know it's about dad as well. Dad has a different kind of energy when he passes, but the mum energy, this was made for when you experience that grief and you feel that connection again. So, you know, there's stuff in there that just comes in, and if you can think of your body as a even as a circle maybe, and there's some missing parts in that circle. So some of these vibrational remedies or techniques that we're talking about fill those voids, and it completes your circle again so that your energy field is intact to be able to cope.
I love the way that you have tools that can assist people, Marnie, and you're wonderful with your essences and your sprays. People can reach out to you on your website, www.kinique, that's KINIQUE.com.
Well, yeah.
And see what lovely products you have. And if they would like a session with you, of course, they can reach out there. Is that the easiest way for people to get to you?
Yeah, or just message me, email me. I've got an email or a phone numbers on my website as well. So they can just look up the website and they'll be able to contact me through that.
Oh, and Belinda's just asked, where could I find that spray? I would love to send some to my beautiful friend. Well,
you'll have to contact me, Belinda, because it's one of my unique Uniquely for You sprays called Just for Mum. And it's I sell it through my website. So just even if you text me or contact me after you've been dealing with what you're dealing with, and I'll get some sent for you.
Gorgeous. I love the sign behind you today, Marnie.
Oh, the peace. Yes. I'm in a different spot today than I normally am, but I thought that looked quite good behind me.
Absolutely. And my mother's favourite colour was blue.
Yeah.
So how about that?
On the other side, yeah.
There's a bit of blue behind you.
Absolutely. It's hiding my whiteboard. Actually, I've just been creating a new spray over the weekend, and it's for when you feel the loss of your fur child and dealing with that, or even for, you know, vets that are having to deal with a lot of euthanasia and you know, allowing pets to pass on to the Rainbow Bridge. So I've been creating, it's been in my creating space on the weekend. So that should be out soon. It's another timely. Well, it is, and it's another one. It's been percolating there for a little while, and I thought, no, I need to do something about that. And it's about the imprint that they leave on your heart. So, you know, a person's passing has the same imprint. All I'm saying is if someone's imprint is a negative imprint because their connection or your connection to them has been less than positive, that negative imprint needs to be released. Don't hang on to it, because it does your soul or your body no good whatsoever. Your higher self needs freedom from that negativity. You can't change what's been, you can only change how you respond. So if your response is less than comfortable for you, reach out, find a therapist, find someone who can help you, or what can you do to change. And what will often change is that the next generation is changed because you choose to parent differently to what you might have had as parents. Okay, so we often allow change to go that way, but it doesn't stop those barbs sitting in your heart. So you need to pull out the prickles. Get rid of them. You don't need them.
Well, Belinda is very grateful for your offer. So that's Excellent.
Yeah,
And Carol's back on, so that's really good too. I'm not quite sure what happened there.
That's all right, Carol. I disappeared for a moment as well.
Yes.
Popped out and popped back again. So just on a practical level, seeing as we're dealing with this, so sometimes, so that I mentioned before, the lungs and large intestine is the metal element, so it's the silver element of the Chinese cycle, healing cycle. So some of the muscles that can be sometimes a bit affected, so your the muscles on the sides of your legs, so you might find you've got hippie problems, your hips might be suddenly not working as well. So your hips, remember, are very much about pointing in the direction where you're walking now. So if you've got a bit of loss going on there, your hips mightn't be as sound as they were. So just be aware of your hips. And if they feel a bit rickety or funny, just deal with some of the emotional trauma that you're going through and see whether that allows those muscles, because muscles hold memory. Okay. So if see whether just by acknowledging the trauma that you're feeling and the fact that you now can move freely and easily, see whether that helps to move things along. And then the lung muscles are a lot in the as we spoke about the diaphragm, but the shoulders too. You might be carrying a lot of weight on your shoulders for the responsibility of what you're dealing with at the moment. And it doesn't stop after the celebration of life, because then you've got the whole legal thing that you've got to go through, but you've got to go through what Annette's going through at the moment, which is the dealing of all the stuff and all the belongings and the memories. And again, just when you're doing that, have your 3 buckets, have your 3 containers. This is a toss out. We don't want it. This is, oh, geez, I'm not sure if I want that or not, but these ones I'm not releasing straight away. You can take them with you. You don't have to deal with it all straight away. And they're not generally hugely expensive things. They're the memories that are connected to it. And if you don't have room in your life for a lot of stuff, take a photo of it. And the photo is just as connected to you. It's the memory of the item anyhow. Right. But get rid of the stuff you don't have any connection. I know with mums, I don't care about that. So that could go straight away. Sheets and towels and things like that. Linen can go to animal shelters. They'll always take them. So what can you get rid of? What can you give away? What can you gift? What do you need to throw away? But cleanse yourself at the same time. So make sure that your central meridian is flowing really nicely. So your central meridian goes from the pubic bone upwards to the bottom of the chin. Make sure that's got a nice flow in it, right? Because that helps you think.
Again, to be gentle with ourselves as we're clearing the space. And it does help when we know other places, such as animal shelters, such as Goodwill shops, op shops, homeless. There are lots and lots of places where things can go. I understand also, though, that it's a challenging time. So my sister and I and brother have been very, very fortunate. Mum lived in a village, and there are people in the village who've come forward saying, oh, we've got a fete. The church has got a fete coming up in a couple of months' time. We don't, and this one particular lady doesn't mind her second bedroom holding a whole lot of stuff for the fete. How wonderful. It's great. And I'm sure, I know, Mum is smiling at that one. So.
Yeah. Well, I've still got boxes of Mum's good stuff, good to me, good memories to me, like, her nice organised glasses. So we were 4 children, so we sort of tried to split things evenly. So some of the better stuff has found its way down to Melbourne and out to Stanthorpe and different places, but there was lots of other stuff that you didn't have the time to go through everything. And it's just in the shed, and it will be dealt with at some stage.
That's right.
It's going to be. And you know what, the other thing, I've just got, well, maybe not hundreds, but certainly many tens of tablecloths.
Wow.
Round ones, mainly round ones, because Mum had all these round tables, and she had this, concept. She loved titivating the house. So we've got, the frilled tablecloths, and then the toppers that go on top of it. And if it's not frilled one, it's a polyestery kind of one with, again, a topper that went, and she would have like 5 or 6 of the same colour, so that every table in the house had the same colour range. I was only thinking the other day that, I wonder if there's any like tea shops or anything in Lismore,
Mm.
lost all their stuff and would like some coordinated tablecloths. You know, a lot of people don't use them anymore.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but I realise I don't know if there's a name for a tablecloth fetish. I will have to look it up. I'm sure
Well,
there's a name.
you'll find somebody at the right time. It's amazing how things come about.
Yeah.
Belinda Brown saying it's got a scalloped edged topper.
Yeah. all sorts, love, all sorts, all colours.
Tablecloths. Yes, it was part of a fabulous era, which is what Carol's saying. And Carol's also saying for some, grief can be carried deeply for many years.
Yeah.
Living life is paramount whilst being gentle with oneself.
Yeah. As I said, if you can find someone to help share your memories and have that shared memory, and it's the love grief is not as detrimental to health as the negative grief.
Mm.
So the regrets are heavier than I'm so glad we did that. Okay. But some of the regrets, and as we spoke already, some of the regrets are, I should have been there. That's not, you don't need to carry that regret. It's not required. It's not wanted. The person chose that time.
Mm.
It's not part of it's none of your business what time they went. Okay. So don't carry it as your business.
We can give ourselves a hard time, can't we, Marnie? And about things that we no longer can do anything about. And we're looking at it from our point of view. Sometimes we wish we were there. However, to then know that no, it was our loved ones choosing to go when they did. And for some, it's much easier.
Yeah, sit in quiet meditation. Sit somewhere of joy that you like, that connects, and go inwards and know that person knows that you cared and that you did that, all that you could, and that was expected of you, and above and beyond in most cases. Right? And just know that it was accepted, it was acknowledged, it was gratefully received. And their gift to you was passing the way they did.
Mm-hmm. Now, Carol Kessel says she has teacups to go with your tablecloths.
That's all right. I got a lot of them too. And matching glasses. Oh,
and Belinda's saying, my beautiful girlfriend has no answers yet as to why her son passed.
Yeah, and that's the hardest thing. I mean, there's no words that can express the grief that every other mother is feeling on her behalf.
Mm.
And the other side of that is it's something we don't always acknowledge, but when someone else is having to deal with that grief, you have that sense of relief that it's not you. So sometimes your connection to them is also in your head going, oh, thank God it's not me dealing. I don't know how they're coping.
Mm.
So it's almost a bit of guilt that it's not me doing it.
Mm.
Does that make sense? It's the other side of the card sort of thing. I so feel your pain, but I'm so glad it's not mine.
Mm.
That kind of thing. So I know there was a situation when my boys were at school and a couple of young lads passed from a yucky disease, and there was a lot of that. The relief that it wasn't your child that you were dealing with for that grief was almost as scary as what happened.
Belinda's going, yes, yes.
Yeah, all you can do is comfort.
I'm wondering whether your girlfriend down the track would benefit from a reading with a medium. If you got in touch with, I have a couple of very good mediums who I can think
reliable, reputable, send them to her.
And because to have contact with her son, and that's where she'll get the answers, and it might make it easier. She will be comforted by the fact that his soul is living on, and he'll be happy where he is. I must admit, I found great comfort in going to a medium, and it became a darling friend after Barry passed. So that's something that can help anyone with grief.
Absolutely. And, you know, sometimes you'll never get the answers, especially if they've passed by their own hand. You know, it's another grief that the guilt you feel in that respect. I know I had a niece pass by her own hand, and the family some of the families still haven't recovered, and it's many, 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 many years later, because you feel like, especially her mum felt she should have known, and she didn't. So, you know, she's kicking herself there. But you tell your friend to use, without, sounds funny, talk about him. Make sure you include him in conversation, not to the extent that no one else is included, but be part of a natural conversation about your son, because their life matters, and the life they've lived matters. And it's not about how they died or why they died. It's more about the joy or love that you had whilst they were here.
Belinda's saying he was such a wag, such a personality, and the coroner will
he will find a way of bringing that personality into the celebration of life today. I can assure you, he's already been back twice. So
watch out for that. Yeah.
Yes.
And the coroner will have answers within 3 months. Yeah, that can. It's that waiting.
Oh, so, it's horrible. Yeah. Did you? One of the things that I found awkward was knowing what to put in the casket.
Right.
You know, we put mum's slippers and her walking stick, which was always on the ground. Every time you turn around, it had fallen off the table or something. So it went with her. And, you know, we needed to know that she had slippers to put on. I put her teeth in there because towards the end she didn't want to put her teeth in. So I made sure they went. And then she used to have this really unusual, it was a spider necklace. It was just something that caught her eye at a stand one day, and she bought it, and she'd wear it a lot. And she'd tell people when she was out that her spider would catch the crumbs for her, so it didn't matter if she was a bit untidy. And so I went with her because I figured it might deal with any of the challenges that she may have come across afterwards. But, you know, even that is the hard, can be hard. But I know choosing the casket, we just happened across some that were wrapped, and when I told my kids, they went, "Oh, for God's sake, Mum, what have you done now?" Thinking it was going to be this really gaudy thing, but it was this beautiful casket that was covered in the scene of a river. And you know, one of the standing jokes in our family was Mum always said, "I want to go for a float down the river. I want to see where this Pine River goes." And Dad always said, "Well, wait till you've passed, and we'll shove you down there in a cardboard box," because she used to get seasick. So no point sending her in a boat. And you know, we found this most beautiful casket that was just looked like, and it was actually from the Pine River. So she got her wish in the end. You know, so what can you do to make the day less horrible, and to give you the strength to be more together for it?
Now, Carol has a message to pass on to Belinda's friend. Loved ones were there to welcome the young person into the kingdom of heaven. And Belinda is saying, "Thank you for helping me feel and understand my pain and grief whilst we share together."
Yeah. And we're all sending all our hugs and love to you, Annette, as you now move forward with Mum as well.
Well, thank you, Marnie.
That's right.
And I'd like to thank everybody for being here today. It's been a very timely and I hope helpful session. I'm very pleased that I have done it. Thank you, Marnie, for being here today. I know you've got a special thing happening for you next month, so September.
Oh, no, it got cancelled.
Oh!
I had to let you know I'm back if you want me. So, yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So Marnie and I. Excellent. Marnie and I will be returning next month. And next week, I do believe, the lovely Rosemary Butterworth will be with us at this time. Thank you, thank you, thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate it.
I love.
And just before we go, I need to remind you that these shows should never replace your legal, medical, nor professional advice, nor your own sound judgment. We hope we've helped you